Good evening. Boris Johnson and his Conservative Party have swept to a landmark victory in the UK general election, with voters backing his bid to deliver Brexit by the end of January. There have been major swings to the Conservatives in Labour's traditional heartland, handing Mr Johnson a thumping majority. The Conservatives securing 362 seats, Labour with 203, the Scottish National Party on 48, and the Liberal Democrats securing 11 seats so far. SBS Europe correspondent Ben Lewis joins us now live from Downing Street. Ben, good evening. A truly stunning result. What does it mean for Britain?
Anton, good evening. It means that Brexit is definitely going to happen. The UK will probably leave the European Union on January the 31st. It means that Boris Johnson can push through his agenda without much resistance at all. It also means that the future of the United Kingdom itself is at stake because the SNP has had huge success north of the border. The Prime Minister told the Tory faithful in the early hours of the morning that the result was an electoral landslide. He's not wrong.
He took a gamble on this snap election, and the bet has paid off.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Boris Johnson vindicated as the Conservatives thumped Labour.
It does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done.
The Tories are on track to their biggest majority since Margaret Thatcher's 1987 triumph. A disastrous night for Jeremy Corbyn, the face of a Labour catastrophe.
This is obviously a very disappointing night for the Labour Party with the result that we've got.
The dramatic exit poll came as a shock to all parties.
Our exit poll is suggesting that there will be a Conservative majority,
prompting jubilation among the Conservative faithful and disbelief from Labour.
Oh, it's disastrous. I mean, the exit poll is a catastrophe for the Labour Party.
Sunderland and Newcastle raced to declare first as the actual results began to roll in. An early upset saw a remarkable victory for the Conservatives in Labour's traditional north of England heartland.
I would like to thank Boris because
the former mining constituency of Blythe Valley, held by Labour since 1950, seized by the Tories. The big swings away from Labour continued. Ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair's old seat, another former mining constituency, also turning blue. The Labour leadership stunned.
Is it not time for you and Jeremy Corbyn to stand down and make way for another generation?
Well, we'll see the results in the morning and then decisions will be made, I'm sure, then.
Jeremy Corbyn says he won't lead the party to another election, but won't resign immediately. North of the border, it was a completely different story.
well, that's quite a win for the Scottish National Party.
The SNP trouncing both Labour and the Conservatives, building the case for a second vote on Scottish independence.
Boris Johnson's argument in this election in Scotland has been flatly and completely rejected.
The Liberal Democrats had pledged to stop Brexit. Their youthful leader was widely mocked for declaring she was a candidate for Prime Minister. In the end, she didn't even hold her seat.
For millions of people in our country, these results will bring dread and dismay, and people are looking for hope.
So how did the Conservatives win it? Tory voters frequently cited Mr Johnson's Get Brexit Done pledge as their reason for backing him.
I voted Conservative. I didn't have much choice. We have a rabid socialist on one side and a particularly unattractive Conservative leader, but we can't have another 3 years of undecided hung parliaments who just put us in stasis as a nation.
In many seats, Labour's only hope was that voters could look past Mr Corbyn's perceived shortfalls.
I voted Labour.
And why was that?
I don't know, for everything that I've stood for, the way my parents have brought me up, I just can't vote Tory.
Boris Johnson thanked voters in the early hours of the morning, promising to get straight to work.
That work will begin tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Or rather, I should say not tomorrow, today. Today. Thank you all.
A mandate in his own right.
So a remarkable result that Boris Johnson probably couldn't even have dreamed of. And as I speak, out of the corner of my eye, I can see Boris Johnson just arriving back in Downing Street at the moment. I'll jump out of the way so you can see him arrive. The full security escort here. We think it's Boris Johnson anyway. See if he jumps out of the car here. Security staff with him at the moment. Mr. Johnson, how are you feeling? There you go, the Prime Minister putting his arm around his partner, Carrie Simons, got his red briefcase, walking back into number 10. I'm sure he'll pose for a few photographs there. A little bit later on today, he'll be heading off to Buckingham Palace to speak with the Queen. She will ask him to form a government, and of course, as the leader of the largest party in the House of Commons, he will easily be able to do that. He's just come back from a rally in central London where he was speaking to the Tory party faithful. Quite an unusual thing for a Prime Minister to do here in Britain. He claimed that he was now leading the people's government. Here's a little of what he had to say.
We did it! We pulled it off, didn't we? We pulled it off. We broke the deadlock, we ended the gridlock, we smashed the roadblock, and with this mandate and this majority, we will at last be able to do what? You've been paying attention.
Well, Ben, perfect timing by the Prime Minister there, but from the point of view of Labor, a complete disaster. What does this mean for the party and specifically for Jeremy Corbyn?
Anton, a terrible result, obviously, for Labor. And we heard Jeremy Corbyn overnight saying that he won't be the leader at the next election, but that could be 5 years away, and that won't be enough for most Labor MPs. They want him to go now and to take responsibility. But remarkably, last night, after that exit poll was released, Labor candidates around the country were given their talking points by Labor HQ, and they were told to say that it was because of Brexit. This was a Brexit election and had nothing to do with Labor's manifesto or its leader. But we have spent weeks travelling the UK, and I lost count of the number of times we spoke to lifelong Labor voters who said they simply couldn't vote for the party this time because of Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, of course, the EU was at the centre of this campaign, as you were suggesting there. Any response from European leaders to this very strong mandate?
We're expecting to get some official response from EU leaders in the coming hours. It is still quite early here, but remarkably, they were all at a summit in Brussels last night when the results started to come in. And earlier in the day, we heard the Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, saying that he didn't really care who won. He just wanted to make sure there was a majority in Parliament to get some sort of resolution to Brexit, to get the withdrawal agreement passed. And that now is likely going to happen. We've also heard from leaders outside of Europe. President Donald Trump, who always says he gets on pretty well with Boris Johnson, has tweeted, and he says, congratulations to Boris Johnson on his great win. Britain and the United States will now be free to strike a massive new trade deal after Brexit. This deal has the potential to be far bigger and more lucrative than any deal that could be made with the EU. Celebrate Boris. And a quick fact check there, the deal with the EU is likely to be bigger than the US one. Also heard from Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. He says, congratulations Boris Johnson on a resounding victory and being returned as UK Prime Minister. Looking forward to the stability this brings and a new deal for Oz with the UK. Say g'day to the quiet Britons for us. So there you go, Anton, a remarkable result in the UK election. Boris Johnson, with potentially 5 years of majority power, he'll probably have a little nap, you'd imagine, in Downing Street, and soon he's off to see the Queen.
And that is Ben Lewis updating us on that seismic shift in British politics.